those persons in the LGBTQ community and where they can feel comfortable and safe and have a day where they can come out and be accepted. Last year, 2017, we had an event at the park on that day, and we actually had, I believe it was 2 persons that came out that day, high school students, about who they were. And so what we want to do is we want to make sure this city is welcoming to all persons, regardless of sexual orientation, regardless of race, color, sex, religion, etc. And what this day is to acknowledge those persons and let them know that we are with you, we stand with you, and you are safe here in Des Moines.
Thank you, Joshua. Our proclamation reads as follows. National Coming Out Day, launched in 1988, is an annual internationally observed celebration of those lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, questioning LGBTQ people who have had the courage to be proud of who they are and to fight for equal rights. And whereas Des Moines is committed to being inclusive and championing and enjoying the vibrancy of our diversity and inclusion, and whereas equality for all residents of Des Moines Metro, including those who are LGBTQ, is intrinsic to the values we most cherish. And whereas the city of Des Moines joins the international community in celebrating National Coming Out Day, now I, the mayor of Des Moines, on behalf of our city council and our citizens, do hereby proclaim October 11th, 2018 is National Coming Out Day and call upon our residents of Des Moines to recognize and participate in this special observance. So thank you guys for coming down, and I'll give you our thing, and maybe we ought to take a quick picture here. We're good? All of our eyes were open?
Thank you, Mayor.
So I'm going to ask some of our representatives of our fire department to step forward if they will. And this week is Fire Prevention Week, and I'm going to step aside. And who wants to speak?
I guess that's probably me.
Step up.
Thanks, Mayor. Fire Prevention Week is this week, and we have several activities planned. We're excited about partnering with other city organizations like Parks and Rec and the libraries. We'll be at every library this week doing story time, with firefighters doing story time, including 2 of the bilingual story times. We're partnering with Parks and Rec this Saturday for the Fall Family Fun Fest. And we've got the poster contest awards presentation at the old fire station, now the Des Moines Social Club. So we've got a lot of activities planned, and we're excited about reminding people and educating them about fire prevention.
Well, I think you're having a gathering, Midwest regional training, aren't you? This week? I think you are.
Maybe.
Across the street at Embassy Suites, we're having a fire regional training, and I think it's the union and others that are over there organizing people from our 4-state region. I think Iowa, Nebraska, Kansas, and Missouri are gathering over there, and they've got over 100 firefighters and union representatives over there talking about what we do, how we do it, and making sure that everybody is trained up to be able to serve those of our community and make sure that they are safe. And I want to tell you, to these gentlemen that are standing up here and all of our fire people and public safety people, I've got to tell you, they work all the time, 24 hours a day, 365, as I say, sometimes 366 days a year. And sometimes it's not just putting out fires. These guys were in boats June 30, going out and rescuing people, and they rescued over 100 people, our public safety people did. And so they're there through thick and thin, when it's dry and when it's wet. And while fire prevention is certainly their number one priority, they're there all the time to help our citizens. So I just wanted to say that and say thank you to you guys, and hopefully you'll pass that on to all of your your fellow firefighters and people in public safety, and we as citizens need to always be proud of you and thank you for what you do. So our proclamation reads as follows: whereas the city of Des Moines is committed to protecting those who live and visit the city from the hazards of fire, and whereas Des Moines residents should identify places in their homes where fires can start and eliminate those hazards, and whereas Des Moines residents should listen for the sound of the smoke alarm and, when it sounds, respond by going outside immediately to a designated meeting place. And whereas residents who have planned and practiced a home fire escape plan are more prepared and will therefore be more likely to survive a fire. And whereas the women and men of the Des Moines Fire Department are dedicated to reducing the occurrence of fires and fire injuries through prevention and education, and whereas the 2018 Fire Prevention Week theme, Look, Listen, Learn, Be Aware, Fire Can Happen Anywhere, effectively serves to remind us that we need to take personal steps to increase our safety from fire in our homes and in our places of business. Now, therefore, I, the mayor, on behalf of our city council and our citizens of Des Moines, do hereby proclaim October 7th to 13th, 2018 is Fire Prevention Week throughout the city, and urge all the people of Des Moines to be aware of their surroundings, look for available ways out in the event of a fire or other emergency, and respond when the smoke alarms by exiting the building immediately, and to support the many public safety activities and efforts of the Des Moines Fire Department during Fire Prevention Week. Let's give these guys a great big hand. All right, prior to the start of our city council meeting, we're going to have a quick meeting of the Municipal Housing Agency Governing Board. This is our meeting officially October 8th, 2018. I'll ask the clerk to please take roll of our board members.
County.
Here.
Coleman.
Here.
Boson.
Here.
Gray.
Here.
Westergaard.
Here.
Mandelbaum.
Here.
Gatto.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Item 2 is approving the agenda as presented and/or as amended.
Move.
It's been moved. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item passes. The third item, which is actually the only item on our agenda tonight, is approving the Des Moines Municipal Housing Agency revised payment standards. This is board communication number 18-501. Is there anybody in the audience who would like to make a quick comment on these revised payment standards? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the open part of our meeting and ask for any discussion amongst our board members. Any thoughts, anybody? If not, could we?
Item 3.
Item 3 has been moved. Clerk, do you want to should we poll our members?
Who press the buttons?
Press.
7 yes.
All right, and could we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
It's been moved. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We said adjourn. All right. Prior to the start of our city council meeting, we're going to have a message from our own city council member, Joe Gatto. Joe, would you like to stand? Sure. Or, so anybody who participate with us, we'd ask you to stand at this time.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for our great country, our city. Thank you for our wonderful staff and all of our public service folks that work very, very hard to keep us safe. Thank you for all of my colleagues, that we can work together for the best of our city. In your name we pray. Amen.
All right, let's note that it's 4:36, and we're going to call this meeting to order, and I will ask the clerk to take roll, please.
County,
Here.
Coleman,
Here.
Boson. Here. Gray,
Here.
Westergaard. Here. Mandelbaum,
Here.
Gatto.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, item 2 is approving the agenda as presented and/or as amended. Let me quick note for those of you that have your programs, item 4A was withdrawn. The inspections are incomplete on that item. And on the regular agenda, items 31 through 44, 43B is added to receive and file communication from the Planning and Zoning Commission. With that, does anybody else have anything that they want to add or subtract?
I see none, Mr. Mayor. I'll move item 2.
All right, item 2, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The item passes. Item 3 is approving the consent agenda. Tonight, those are items 3 through 30. These are routine items and are enacted as one vote unless somebody, either from the council or from the audience, asks to have one pulled for public discussion, clarification, or additional information. Tonight, again, item 4I, 4J, 4K, 4O, Councilmember Coleman votes no. Item 24, Councilmember Gatto wishes to speak. Are there any other items that anyone would like to either pull for additional clarification or consideration?
I'd like to ask a couple questions about item 11, if I could. I know I didn't register that. I'm sorry, Mayor.
All right, so 11 is added. Anything else? All right, could we have a motion for the balance?
I'll move.
It's been
Approval.
moved, and ask everybody to,
7 yes.
all right. That takes us quickly to item 11, which Councilmember Coleman has asked to be pulled. Item 11 is a land property transaction. 11 is approving tax abatements applications for additional value added by improvements completed during 2017 and 18. There are 128 applications. Council Communication number 18-508. Councilmember Coleman.
Thank you. Two questions. There is on page 2, it begins, Scott, if you don't mind, I'll wait for you to find it, just because I want to, I'm not going to go through the whole accounting of it, but of the blue letter on page 2, there is a historical summary of how much is there. And first off, are we comparing apples to apples? Is the previous year information full year and this is partial year?
Actually, I believe the other way around. So the previous years are full years. What you're looking at for approval tonight is a partial year, and roughly we think a third of the year. So there will be more to get us closer to the norm that you've seen on the previous years.
Yeah. So the blue letter does a good job just kind of summarizing the data, but doesn't really speak to,
Period of time.
and doesn't really speak to any lessons learned from here or issues that we could have. Because as I look at it, I don't want to really make any judgment on it because we're not comparing apples to apples. So it makes me feel good that we're not looking at an equal period of time because the numbers are down, but that would make sense of a lot of it. I guess what I'd be interested in is what do we expect the rest of the year? Are there big ticket items coming? And the other thing that I get, so that's issue number 1. Issue number 2 would be, I think it's always helpful to us as we try and explain our economic development strategy to talk about the properties that are coming off of abatement each year. And either this year or next year. I think some of the downtown major developments that were recipients of TIF and tax abatement and others will start to roll in. So I think it's always helpful to know that those properties eventually start paying and how much that value is of new payers. So homes that may have been built 5 years ago, businesses that were built 10 years ago, properties that have been on abatement and TIF would be helpful. And I think be good talking points for the council so the citizens kind of know that the process does come around and benefits all of us.
And I would just add one piece that in some of these cases with TIF, they're paying additional property taxes from the get-go. It's just
Right.
a
Right.
percentage of a project. And same with some of the abatement, some of them come along sooner than others and start paying percentages quickly. But I think that's a really good point. Like, I think that's really useful information for our citizens.
Yeah, we can attempt to capture some of that data. Probably propose a couple different formats first, though, before we
Yeah,
add it to the report.
I'd be looking for a format that's the least amount of administrative work for our staff.
Okay.
Maybe there's a way to pull it down from the assessor or that we can.
Do you want to do it in the workshop too, so everybody kind of gets it as they get
Yeah,
that data?
yeah.
Present that.
It's a good
I'm-
idea. I think it's a good idea, too.
So
Okay.
So,
I appreciate that. With both those, I'll move item 11 and ask for those two pieces of reports, one of them looking backwards and then talking about how we might get good information on those properties rolling off of abatement or TIF.
7 yes.
All right, item 24 is approving the issuance of a certificate of completion to FDM Development Partners, LLLP, for the rehabilitation of existing buildings in historic Fort Des Moines in the 6800 block of Chappie Road for residential use. Councilmember Gatto.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to pull this off and say some kind things to our staff, Blackbird firm, and just the entire development. I don't know if some of you have been out there to see it, but it's pretty tremendous how, I know that before I was on this council, we talked about a super block through that area and rehabbing some of those older buildings, and they've done that. It's a $40 million investment that Blackbird has done, and it's very, very nice housing. It is workforce tax credit housing. That is not low-income housing of any sort, but that is for the person that's working a decent job and not able to afford, the $1,500 or the $2,000 downtown. This is a great way of getting them a nice roof over their shoulders. So I just, this is something that they'd like to go into phase 2. We've got some plans, and hopefully we can work through that of the 5th Judicial, possibly finding another home, and being able to move into some of those buildings and rehabbing it. And the parade grounds were purchased by Blackbird, and hopefully we'll be able to do some good things. But this is a step in the right direction. This is almost a 4.5-year process that this is taking. So, good job. It's completed. I love seeing that. So I will move item 24.
Yep, good project and something that's been long overdue,
Yeah.
so I'm glad to see it's moved.
Saved a lot of those buildings.
Yep.
7 yes.
All right, so that completes our consent agenda. Next is item 31 under ordinances, first consideration, amending Chapter 62 of the Municipal Code regarding costs for public hearings for the Civil and Human Rights Commission. A is the final consideration of an ordinance above the waivers requested by the Legal Department and Civil and Human Rights Director and requires 6 votes. Anybody in the audience like to speak to this change regarding costs for Civil and Human Rights Commission? Seeing none, any comments from council?
I will move.
I just had a couple comments.
Absolutely.
I was hoping that we could maybe add a little clarity to the language. I don't want to do anything that might discourage someone from bringing a civil rights claim. And I want to give the discretion to the commission if there are complainants that they don't feel should be assessed. And so there were a couple of little tweaks to the language. It's just one sentence, but I'd like it to read, costs incurred by the commission for the public hearing may be equitably taxed as between the parties as circumstances warrant in the judgment of the hearing officer or the commission. So it just adds a little bit of language and changes a shall to a may to give them discretion.
All right, Mr. Attorney, you okay?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. So with that short amendment,
With that short amendment, I'd move this and I'd move to waive the, or actually 31A, move to waive the second and third reading.
all right?
7 yes.
All right, nice catch. Item 32 is amending Chapter 78 of the Municipal Code, repealing Article 4, solicitation of funds, Section 78-101 through 78-115. A is the final consideration of the ordinance above the waivers requested by the legal department and requires 6 votes. Is there anyone in the audience to speak to this item?
I have a question.
Sir, if you step up to the podium here, give us your name and address, and ask your question, or see if we can possibly,
My name is.
no, could you step up to the microphone?
Right
Name?
here, sir. Right.
Sorry, I have a question. Like, when can I speak of my message about bringing, doing an organization about suicide?
He's after this.
Okay, thanks. I just don't know very much about city council side.
I'll help.
Thanks.
We're on number 32. You're going to come back up and speak in a little while.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, all right. So we're on 32. This is about solicitation of funds, Section 78-101 through 78-115. It's a final consideration of the ordinance. The waivers requested by the legal department requires 6 votes. Anyone? Seeing none, could we ask for a motion on
Mr. Mayor,
item
could I-
32?
just a clarification, and I've had a few calls about this today, and I think our messaging needs to maybe hear some from our legal department of why we're doing this and what we're going to do in the future about some folks that probably aren't being very safe out there doing some of this, and that they're not being safe for the folks that are actually giving the money and the folks that are in the car. So if you can, Mr. Lester, give us your reasoning that why we're doing it and what we're going to do in the future, I would feel a lot more comfortable, and then everyone at home will know what we're doing.
I think there's a couple of questions, if I might. That first one, I think, is, what the change is for making sure that everybody's rights are respected, but secondly, how we're going to handle it moving forward, protecting public safety. So if you could work on that.
That's a great summary, Your Honor. I know that the council is very cognizant and concerned about free speech rights. Federal Supreme Court has held on numerous occasions in different, and this has been even more broadly interpreted by the circuit court at the federal level, that there is a constitutional right, it's a First Amendment right in terms of being able to solicit for funds. In 2015, there was a case that came out that changed much of the jurisprudence in terms of how things were looked at for what's called content-based. And our ordinance has a lot of content-based distinctions which are unconstitutional under the Reed case in 2015, drawing based on the content of the speaker and the identity of the speaker and the solicitor. So it's not like you have a valid ordinance and we're suggesting that you adopt a different ordinance that maybe is better later. You have an invalid unconstitutional ordinance in our opinion currently. Our suggestion is to repeal that. We have not prosecuted under this ordinance. Our prosecutor, most recent prosecutor, has been here a little over 2 years, and he indicates he's not prosecuted a single case. So I think our police department has used discretion and been very careful in how they've approached this. So that's the suggestion for why the repeal is necessary, so you don't have an unconstitutional ordinance that could lead to litigation and potential liability for the city. Going forward, however, we'll have to produce a different ordinance unrelated to the content or character of the speech, because I know council is concerned about First Amendment rights. On the other hand, council is very concerned about public safety. So any ordinance going forward would be based on public safety, would be based on whether or not the presence of individuals in the right-of-way is appropriate for the circumstances. An extremely narrow median, for example, that wouldn't be appropriate, or blocking traffic or stopping traffic that would cause other problems, that will be included. Those, according to the circuit court cases, they can't be a citywide basis. They need to be empirically based. So there will be a brief, and I'm talking brief in terms of how local government operates sometimes, but there will be a brief interlude, a brief period of time where empirical evidence will need to be gathered. I believe Scott's, the manager's staff, is already working on gathering that data. And once the data is gathered, we'll be able to craft an ordinance that we believe will be sustained as constitutional. Again, not related to solicitation, but really related to public safety, as Councilmember Gatto and the mayor have alluded to, related to public safety and related to the appropriate use of city right-of-way to make sure that the facilities are able to be used for their intended purpose, while at all times respecting the First Amendment rights of people to use what's called traditional public forums, streets, and sidewalks to express themselves and for their First Amendment rights that are protected both under the state and federal constitution.
All right.
Okay.
I will move 32 and 32A with that.
Thank you for the question, Councilmember, and thank you, Mr. Attorney, for the explanation.
I do still have one question, and I think we've already talked about it. How soon would we be able to put something out there for a new ordinance then?
We can draft, we think we'll be able to draft an ordinance relatively quickly. The time delay will be in gathering the empirical data that will be necessary to support the level of scrutiny that may be involved, which could be, and I know I'm getting hyper-technical here, but we're talking about what could be a level of scrutiny called intermediate scrutiny. But at this point, it's merely a process that we'll have to go through to get the appropriate data for council to evaluate and make its decisions on those appropriate areas in the city where a pedestrian or physical presence of people is going to lead to problems with public safety. 3 to 4 months.
Was that clear?
Fine.
We'll be able to, I'm sure we'll be able to get some data before that time.
All right. Item 33 is amending Chapter 114 of the Municipal Code to add part-time one-way street at Harding Middle School to match the new school hours. Council Communication Number 18-499. Anybody here to speak to that item? Seeing none?
I would move item 33 and move to waive the second and third reading.
All right.
Seven yes.
Item 34, amending Chapter 74 of the Municipal Code regarding golf course greens fees and season badges. Council Communication Number 18-500. Anybody here in the audience to speak to this item? And golf course fees.
I'll move it. Looking over the agenda item and the supporting documents, I'm really proud that we continue to give a discount to military members, and so I compliment our Parks Department and the golf course operators, C Corp, for making that happen. I guess I didn't realize that until I read the materials.
And as it went through the Parks Board and the Golf Advisory, I didn't see, it always did. I mean, I would be willing to waive the second and third reading if you're all right with that, Councilman
Yeah,
Coleman.
I'll include that in my motion so we don't have to vote twice.
For 310.
Seven yes.
Okay, now we're going to that item 35 from Don Bushby of 5115 Northeast 23rd to speak regarding raising money for mental hospitals. Sir, step up.
Thanks. My name is John Bushby. You know, the number 2 death of college and high school deaths are suicide. Well, we are we are the worst, one of the worst mental states in the states of America. Like when a lot of us are treated like second citizens that we are like because a lot of mental hospitals are got rid of because of money given to governments and when I was in 2013 I had to wait 3 months to go to a psychiatrist for my depression, PTSD, and before that, I got arrested for assault because of this psychiatrist problem, and I had to get arrested. And I shouldn't have to got arrested when I could have gone to when I could have gone to mental hospital and like it's getting worse. We got people getting arrested, more suicides than ever. I'm not happy about this. Like we need to as a community to put money to bring back these mental hospitals as a state of Iowa. I think we should do it the whole entire United States, but we need more help. Do you know what it's like to see your best friend killed every night and sleep? It's beyond horrible. You can imagine seeing your best friend being killed over and over when you sleep. It's depressing, and like a lot of teens, a lot of adults, even adults, get abused or sexually assaulted, or women assaulted. This is not cool. We need help and bring more mental hospitals so we don't have to so we don't feel like we have to suicide or go to jail. You're doing a good step about doing how to help depression people in the way, but that's wonderful. But we need, as a community, in the state of Iowa, we need to address this. Me and my friend smoked K2, and he suicided himself, and I want to watch him every night doing this, and it's not, and I'm just beyond mad about this. That's it. Thanks.
John, thank you for your very straightforward, brave testimony, and I absolutely agree with you that we need to work on mental health issues. We need to work on funding up at that state capitol. And we at the city council level understand what you're talking about. And for those of us that have, watched mental health and watched the unfortunate demise and disintegration, if you will, of mental health, support standards and institutions in the state of Iowa is deplorable. So I thank you for bringing it up, and if somebody would give us a motion to receive and file John's very good testimony on this regard. So thanks, John.
I forgot one more thing. One more thing to say. I would like to see if there's a way I could talk to Kim Reynolds somehow. I'd like to set a meeting. Is there a way that I can set a meeting with Kim Reynolds and talk about this issue? I would like to do that, That's it. This is the final thing, I promise.
Okay, that's all right, John. You know what? I will make a call up there myself, and if we can get if somebody can get his phone number, we'll give it to the governor, and hopefully we can set something up for you to do it, and I'll make that request myself. So I appreciate your adding that. You bet. If somebody will move to receive and file his comments, that'd be great.
I'll move to receive and file his comments for this evening on a much-needed item.
Seven yes.
It is 5:01. We're going to need to move straight to our hearings, which are to start at this time. So our first hearing item is item 39. This is items regarding 100 Watrous Avenue. A is to amend the existing Plan DSM, creating our tomorrow planned future land use designation from low-density residential to neighborhood mixed use. B is a hearing on a request from Get and Go convenience stores to rezone the property from R171 family residential to limited C1 neighborhood retail commercial to allow redevelopment of the property with a new gas station convenience store with 6 fueling locations, subject to condition. This item was continued from September 24th of 2018. C is the first consideration of the ordinance above, and D is the final consideration of the ordinance above. The waiver is requested by Get and Go convenience stores and requires 6 votes. Let's go ahead and open the hearing and see if there's anyone in the audience to speak to this item. Gentlemen, thanks for coming back.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, honorable mayor, distinguished folks of the council. Back from the 24th, obviously. We have a not a plan for construction, but a proposed plan for the site drawn by Bishop Engineering. And per Mike Ludwig, we signed, of course, another acceptance of rezoning, the ordinance proposal. I don't see any difference in the verbiage of it, but we did sign another copy of that. And then we imposed this plan, or I imposed over the plan where the existing store is for the site as it sits now, so we can have a perspective as to where the new store will sit in relationship to where the existing store sits now.
So that house directly to the west of it, that house is staying the brick home?
The brick home stays, yeah. In fact, Get and Go owns the brick home, and we're in the process of remodeling
Yeah, I see the
today.
dumpster out in front. I
Yep.
didn't know if you were tearing
Absolutely.
that down.
No,
or-
remodeling.
Okay. All right.
And that copy can be retained by council for, submitted for whatever, if you'd like. If not, I can.
I don't have any other questions. Unless anyone else does, I'll move item 39, A, B, C, and D.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming back.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you.
7 yes.
Item 40 is on the vacation of a portion of Northeast 47th Court and approval of land exchange agreement with Hubble Realty Company in conjunction with the Des Moines River Trail Phase 2 project. A is the first consideration of the ordinance above. B is the final consideration of the ordinance above. The waiver is requested by the applicant and requires 6 votes. C is conditionally approving the final subdivision plat, Summerfield Plat 4, located east of East 46th Street and southeast of Hubble Avenue. Council Communication number 18-509. Let's open the hearing on this item and see, is there anyone in the audience who would like to make a comment on this vacation of a portion of Northeast 47th Court and approval of a land exchange? Anybody in the audience to speak to this item? Seeing none, let's close the hearing.
Mr. Mayor, I would move item 40, 40A, 40B, and 40C.
All right.
Excellent.
7 yes.
And there's some tax abatement.
They have a good land exchange, though. I need
Yes.
some of that for
Yes.
some trail connections,
Yes.
so.
All right. Item 41, on a conveyance of excess city-owned property locally known as 2025 East Grand Avenue to Cypress Properties LLC for $60,000. Council Communication number 18-497. Let's open the hearing on this item. Is there anybody in the audience to speak to this item?
I see none, Mr. Mayor. I'll
Let's
move item
close the
40.
hearing, and we're going to move it.
Sorry. I'll move item 41.
All right. Item 41's been moved.
7 yes.
Item 42, on the vacation of a portion of 12th Street right-of-way located west of and adjoining 1157 12th Street for assemblage with the adjoining parcels and conveyance to Lars Vins for $150. A is the first consideration of the ordinance above. We'll open the hearing on the vacation of a portion of 12th Street right-of-way. Anybody here to speak to this item? Seeing none, let's close the hearing on this item. 12th Street, 1157, that might be yours, Josh.
Yep, I'll move item 42 and 42A, and I'll move to waive the second and third readings as well.
Seven yes.
All right, item 43, in the vacation of a roadway easement for southwest connector right-of-way located east of Southwest 63rd Street and conveyance to Bell Avenue Properties, Inc. for $170,950. Council Communication Number 18-510. A, under that, is the first consideration of the item, the ordinance above, and B is to receive and file communication from the Planning and Zoning Commission. Let's go ahead and open the hearing on this item regarding the Southwest Connector right-of-way up 63rd. Anybody here to speak to this item? Anybody? Seeing none, let's go ahead and close the hearing on item 43.
And I'll move item 43, 43A, and 43B, and I'll also move to waive the second and third reading of the ordinance.
Okay, item's been moved.
Seven yes.
Item 44, this item is to reject all bids on the trestle-to-trestle trail repair east of Beaver Avenue. It was 54.6% over the project estimate, and close the hearing on the plan, specifications, and form of contract documents, engineer's estimate. Council communication on this is 18-496. We'll open the hearing on this. Anybody here to speak regarding the trestle-to-trestle bridge and the overage on that project, on the bids? This is really unfortunate, Mr. Manager. I hope that we can try to find a way to get this project done. All right, we'll close the hearing.
Mr. Mayor, this was way disappointing. From an engineering estimate of $400,000, we have $618,342. That's the low bid. And another bid, $721,500. I mean, that's almost twice the bid. I applaud Ben throwing these bids out. This is just appalling to me. Hopefully, we'll come back to something that's a little bit more reasonable, but I'm going to move item 44 and reject all the bids.
Was there a reason that we only had two bids? Was it put out differently? Is it the timing? Is it?
As we can see downtown, there's a lot of bridges under construction. Probably a lot of these guys that would usually look at it are busy.
Honorable Mayor, members of council, Steve Neighbor, city engineer. A lot of when we reached out to contractors, it was timing and workload was the issue. Frankly, also some of the bidders that we thought would have bid it, we even reached out to, and they, frankly, due to their workload, they kind of passed on it without really, I guess, diving into the details of what the proposal was and realizing that there was a substantial amount of sheet piling work, and I think they thought it was more of an asphalt project, to tell you the truth, than what it is. So we are actually honestly going to retitle the title of the project even to try and draw more bidders in as well. So, yeah.
When do we see this work getting completed, in the spring then now?
Yeah, that would be probably.
So
more
it'll
likely
go out
early in
to bid in another month or?
Yeah, we'll go through the process of ordering again and bid this winter, or, late fall, winter.
Okay.
Steve, do you guys ever go out on a site visit with these proposed vendors, or is it everything just on paper?
Not, we do on some projects if we feel the need that there be a pre-bid meeting, but not typically on projects of this nature, because there's enough in the plans. But on some projects, we do pre-bid type meetings and site visits. So more so on for example, like large-scale demolition projects where that'd be beneficial for the contractors to get inside the building and see the buildings and whatnot.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
This one, they can go out to the trail themselves too, and and they have all the plan documents. So,
These are two companies that bid it that didn't really want to do it.
That's correct. Yeah.
All right, we've got a motion.
7 yes.
All right, that completes the hearings. Let's note it's 5:12. Takes us back to item 36. Under communications reports, this one from Dennis Carney of 1435 41st Street to speak regarding abandoned property in his neighborhood.
Mayor County and council members, and I'd like to also thank my council member, Mr. Gray, who has helped me respond, has been very responsive in several emails and getting different things done. This particular property in the handout that I've given you has been vacant, and my concern is you've announced a new plan for abandoned properties in the Beaverdale area being one of them to help take care of these types of properties. But this particular property owner, I'm assuming, continues to pay his taxes because the property has not come up on a tax sale list. And yet, when you see the property, and there's photos enclosed here, it's quite obvious that it's abandoned. No one's lived there for over 10 years. The first photo that you see kind of points out, the general care of it, peeling paint. He has a crop of weeds growing in the gutter that would make any farmer in Iowa pretty proud. The second one is a picture of the side of the home where over 10 years ago he tore the outside chimney off and then plastered over it with some sort of cloth and has since left it that way for better than 10 years. The third one is kind of a close-up of that, but also then shows starkly in the background one of 3 dead oak trees that have been dead for more than 10 years. They're so dead the bark has fallen off of them. And that's one of the items Mr. Tallman, standing back here behind me, he lives right next door, is going to talk about. The fourth one is a picture of where he tore out the retaining wall over 10 years ago. The land is eroding so bad now that a utility pole will probably fall out of the ground soon because the base is exposed. And there's several trees along there that are in the same condition. Number 5 is a picture of the back eave of the house that is virtually rotting off of the house. It's falling down, and it can't even support itself anymore. And then the last pictures I'll let Mr. Tallman talk about. He lives next door, but we're here as concerned neighbors and property owners in what we consider to be a very nice neighborhood. And we want to see it better maintained than what this individual's done. And so our plea is to the council members that if this doesn't fit the program, please make it fit. So.
My name is Mark Tallman, and I live at 1508 Germania Drive, directly adjacent to this property. My wife and I have lived there for 44 years, and we've watched it go from an old but nice Beaverdale home into an increasingly dilapidated nuisance. And I basically want to reiterate on the health and safety issues that are present at this location. Mr. Carney mentioned the 3 dead oak trees. All three of these trees happen to be on his property right along our common property line. And I have concerns about, it's just a matter of time now before these things fall over. They've been dead for years, many years. And one of them, when it falls down, is very likely going to take out telephone lines that run along the back of the property line, which service many homes in the neighborhood. Another one is more than likely going to cause some property damage to my house when it goes. And the third one has a poison ivy vine growing 30 feet up into it. It doesn't really look like a dead tree because it's got poison ivy growing up into it. And I have actually contracted poison ivy a couple of times. The other thing that we want, the condition of his roof, which I can see from my upstairs second-story window and stuff, the roof, we believe, has multiple leaks in it. Water rains down through the house. There are tubs on the interior placed around to collect this dripping rainwater. In the summertime, it's very hot and humid in there. He doesn't air condition or anything. We have concerns that there's mold growing inside the premises, and that certainly is not good. We know for a fact that there have been in the past vermin, raccoons in the house. He had a broken window. His solution to that problem was to nail a board on the interior of the house, just not fix the window, nail a board over it on the interior. And while that particular window was addressed, we feel that through the basement and some other things, there's very likely mice and other vermin in there. Mr. Carney talked about the telephone pole that's likely to fall down because the embankment is eroding away from it. And back to the dead trees too, I did want to mention that not too long ago, a couple of years or so, a very significant limb, I believe this is picture number 8 in the handout that was given to you, very significant limb fell out of his tree onto my property, damaging some landscaping and a trellis that was out there. But the point I want to make is that my wife had been working in the yard approximately 30 minutes prior to this whole thing happening. If that had fallen on her, she'd be dead. So, this is a real problem in our neighborhood, and it's not just the nuisance aspect. There are some health and safety issues as well. And anything that you can do to help us address this issue, I don't know, did you mention that multiple people have made offers to buy this property from the owner?
I've offered 3 times, and 2 other people have offered at least once or twice, and he never would sell it, so.
And he doesn't live there, obviously.
And he hasn't, nobody has lived there for approximately 10 years.
He's paid his taxes, but he applied this year for a homestead credit.
He doesn't live, no one's lived there. It is, and I can get multiple people in the neighborhood to attest that. No one's
What's
lived
that?
there in more than 10 years.
Yeah, although he did tell the city at one point that he
Right.
was living there, so he
Yeah.
misconstrued the facts.
Yeah, it's uninhabitable. You couldn't live in there if you wanted to right now. Because, as he said, someone in the neighborhood told us there's 2 large tubs catching rainwater as it falls through his roof.
He's got a tarp on the roof, there's some pieces of plywood that are nailed down in a failed attempt to try to prevent leaks. The thing is going downhill and has been for a number of years, and he's had plenty of time, to do some maintenance to it, and has done nothing.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very, very much. Mr. Coleman, if you would, or anybody,
I'll
give
move
us
to receive and file, or to enter into the record the documents that they brought.
in the photos and the whole packet, so thank you for giving us that. And maybe if somebody could give a sort of a directive to refer to the manager, and
I'd be happy to.
Mr. Manager, put it to appropriate departments to follow up and at least see what we can do. And I would add to that, just because of some of the pictures we saw of some other structures this morning, maybe add those to it as well, whether we have it in our budget to get out and get on all these right now, but I think that some of these properties ought to go to pretty high up on the list, start working on it immediately.
Do we have this listed as a public nuisance?
No.
Is there any type of violations listed at all as a public nuisance?
Dennis pointed out that they pay their taxes and essentially lies to Sue Ann, says, well, I'm living there.
Well, and he's applied for a homestead credit.
I think this is exactly why we're going into the neighborhood revitalization that we're talking about, and that these examples are exactly what we need to fix in Des Moines with a code or homeowner
Property
code.
maintenance.
When this
Property
is
maintenance.
Property
applied
maintenance and
for-
things like that, so
This should be
neighbors
the day
shouldn't
for-
have to live 10 years next to something, and a house that could have been worth, I mean, just general
Quite a
maintenance.
bit.
Yes.
That Forestdale area is really pristine. A lot of good homes, nice scenery. You guys have a really unique situation there. And I've done everything with Sue Ann to try and get this thing fixed, but we're stuck up against the wall. The guy lies, and the guy doesn't do anything to the property.
Where is he? Has anybody talked, I mean, how do you find him?
I don't know how Sue Ann got a hold of him, but
Do you have another house here? Any other property?
I don't even know where he lives. Dennis, do you know where he lives?
I think he lives in West Des Moines. He's got other properties around the town also that are certainly maintained better than the one that we're showing here today.
God, he could get a
Well,
heck
this
of a
is a
return
great
out by
neighborhood.
selling
I mean,
that.
Not good for the neighboring properties. I mean,
I mean, we just recently had a home in the neighborhood sell for almost $400,000. It's not a bad neighborhood by any means.
it's a nice neighborhood.
So,
Very nice neighborhood.
yeah.
That's
What
exactly.
Connie was saying, and the controversy of, that some people have found with our neighborhood plan is that strategic engagement on properties like this helps so many other
Yeah.
neighbors, and we might get more return on our investment from strategically targeting things like this, rather than going onto a street where there's 10 of them.
Right.
We need to do that, but maybe in a different way with a different plan for that land.
Yeah.
Here, we improve your value, you have more people that want to
Right.
live there, and
Well, like Mr. Dahlman's lived in the neighborhood 40 years. We've lived there over 35, and we're across the street. But, I mean, we've watched it just go downhill and go downhill. Basically now, about all it's worth is whatever the land is worth. The structure would have to be torn down. It's just not, I can't imagine anybody could salvage it, but maybe they can. I don't know.
Someone else might.
So I'd like to
anyway.
refer this to the city manager. Let's put this on a priority list. I don't know if anybody can go in there and salvage it anymore. There's a lot of rehabbers out there that might want to look at it, but like you say, if stuff's going down through the roof, we're in trouble.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
what
There-
can you do
there's-
about the
There's
trees?
plaster failures in the ceiling, and like we said, tubs set around to collect the water, and eventually they're going to fill up and fall through the floor.
Yeah.
It's getting to be in pretty bad shape, and
My concerns too is the dead trees, like you said, that fell down. So what is the mechanism that we can also take care of the dead tree issue?
That's.
So that's part of, you're looking into.
Yeah.
Okay.
report back.
I
Okay.
have
We would like to
contacted
know.
the city forester, and they don't seem to be willing to do anything, so you guys are kind of our last resort here.
Well, I think it's a public safety issue.
Yeah.
of some sort. I know it's on private property.
Well, and public health too.
Yeah.
So, I mean, especially vermin and everything else going on in there, and who knows who else is trying to live in there.
Yeah, and mold.
Legally, if we're able to.
And also, Scott, in our conversations, Danny's volunteered to be on the property maintenance committee, so.
Oh.
I'll go for that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank
We
you very
appreciate
much.
your time.
Thank you for coming.
Gentlemen.
good of you to come down. Thanks for spending your time.
I have a question for the city attorney. If we think that there's been fraud committed on the homestead exemption, does that provide any leverage in this situation? I mean, is that
Or is there,
committing fraud? Can that be?
Let's say
Certainly
a
that information would be shared with the county, but, right. That would go to the county rather than, there's some other things that we can visit about with respect to that. But
oh, this is carried on for 10 years or more, so let's put an end to it.
All right, so we have a motion to receive and file comments from these two gentlemen and direct to the city manager to go to appropriate departments and see what in the world we can do.
I think
Who's doing
Bill made the motion.
Hey,
Bill,
Chris.
you did that? We're ready to go.
Chris, did you do the motion?
You made the motion, just add to receive and file it, because I made that motion earlier, but I don't think we ever voted.
Okay.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Vote,
All right,
Coleman.
now,
Aye.
7 yes.
Just gave Scott some more work.
item 37, it's approving a city-initiated request to amend the existing Plan DSM, creating our tomorrow plan, future land use designation, the vicinity of Southwest 56th Street and Southwest McKinley Avenue. We'll go ahead and see if there's anybody in the audience who wants to speak to this item.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, Kevin Foley, Executive Director, Du Bois International Airport. This property that is in being discussed tonight is at the end of a proposed runway. Property for this runway was purchased as late as 2008. Over the last 18 months or so, the airport has worked with city staff to shorten that proposed runway, pulling the property back so that this property that's under consideration tonight is no longer inhibited for development. And in fact, development did move forward. It was commercial development in that area. The city staff has proposed that this property be rezoned for commercial, basically commercial property. The Planning and Zoning Commission declined to support that proposal from city staff. Our concern as the airport is if it remains residential, when that runway gets built, we will end up having to purchase the property back because of the noise situations with aircraft flying over this property if it's left in a residential manner.
Not so much with commercial.
Now, the noise complaints typically come from evening type activity. In other words, where homeowners are there, you're in your house after 5 o'clock at night and on into the very early mornings when we would have departures off of this runway. That's when you get your noise complaints as a rule.
When do you plan on building the runway?
Well, I don't know.
Okay.
You know that we are experiencing quite a bit of passenger growth at the airport.
Sure.
It looks like this year, my guess is we're going to end the year up about 8% higher than we were last year. And that's an ongoing trend.
Sure.
And as you know, for the next 8 to 10 years, all of our dollars are going to be tied up into the development of a new terminal to accommodate that growth. If things continue in the manner that they have, at some point, this runway would be necessary to accommodate the additional aircraft.
Commercial or private?
Well, both. As the economy grows, both private and commercial activity increases. The property, again, was purchased with FAA funds. We did reach out to the FAA and ask them whether they would support residential development over there, and verbally they said no. They did decline to give us a letter, though, which is not uncommon for them. So I don't know. The short answer is I don't know, but the property was purchased for the expansion of the airport.
The former council member that served that area about a year ago had conversations with some of the airport authority, some of the neighbors, developers of two different land, Mr. Knapp's, Mr. Toons, and city staff, and everyone was in agreement that it would be okay, given the circumstances, that everyone would know there would be a runway built, and they would be able to develop the land for residential area. And so it's interesting that you would come tonight and speak to that. Within a year ago, it was a complete different conversation with some of the airport authority and city staff and the council member that represented that area. And myself was also included in those conversations.
And again, we did agree to shorten the runway, but.
Yeah, and that was part of it. And it was
to allow for development.
Right.
Not anticipating, though, that this amendment would not go through. We always anticipated that it would be for.
No, they knew that it was, the two property owners insisted that, and the neighbors in that area spoke that they wanted larger homes built in that area, and it would be right there. And everyone was in agreement, including some of the folks on your airport board authority that knew about it and was spoken to about it. So, I mean, that's where I'm just slightly confused a year ago that we're all of a sudden we're switching gears. And I understand where you're coming from, but that's not the message that was given a year ago at all. And so now the two property owners that own that we've already kind of given a nod that, okay, it's okay to build any residential properties there. Now they seem like, and I think that's where the Planning and Zoning Committee was taken off guard, where it was put on a consent agenda and kind of pushed through without even the property owners having any discussion about it.
Can I make a suggestion for maybe how to proceed? Because there are a few things. One, I want to make sure that the piece of the project that needs to move forward moves forward, and minimally that is the proposed amendment relative to the Southwest Gateway urban renewal area, which we have previously acted upon. So I'd like to make a motion to move that piece to go forward. I'd also like there to be a little bit more discussion and transparency, because there does seem to be some confusion. I mean, I've had several conversations with the landowner, trying to wrap my head around it and understand his perspective. And I think it would just be great to get everyone in the same place to have this conversation and maybe memorialize it so that we're not in this situation in the future. I will say, while I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to residential in that area, one of the themes that I'm learning is that if we're not careful about how we develop, and it's even if we're careful, in some cases, development next to different uses leads to issues. And I think we'll probably discuss this at another council meeting in the not too distant future, but I've got a bunch of folks from the Downtown Neighborhood Association who are very concerned about motorcycle noise right now. And that's an example of, we've built downtown up into a neighborhood, and now there's some tensions. I've got other folks who complain to me a lot about the smells we have downtown. And that's going to, over time, become a bigger and bigger issue as we look at, the market district. And so I don't want to rush into something here that creates those kind of problems for an airport. But I do think we owe it to the property owners and others in the area to be as transparent as possible. I'd appreciate it if the airport was willing to sit down with them and sit down with city staff, and it might be either appropriate. I don't know that we need necessarily a work session, but if the council wanted a work session, we could, or if a couple of the council members could be at the meeting too, to make sure that the folks at this body are aware of what's going on and understand the situation and can ask questions.
Yeah, and I'll look to you, and I've asked you this question, but publicly I'll ask it, and I would like an answer why a year later we're absolutely doing the complete opposite, where we've been told to a different city council member that was sitting in this chair and myself that it was okay to do residential there. And the airport authority was involved in the conversations, and everybody knew about it. So I'll put that on the record, and I will like to be involved in some of these conversations, because it's going to need to be explained to me why I sat through meetings and now we're going to do the complete opposite. So I'll support what your statement was, and that sounds like great. We need to get the Waldinger piece through and get that done and move forward on that. But yeah, we're going to need to definitely have some further conversations, because
And the airport is more than willing to sit down with all those parties.
I mean, you did before.
Yeah, and I have to apologize that coming at this late, we simply missed the zoning commission meeting. We thought we were notified, we were tempted to be notified technology.
No, it was on the
network.
consent. It was on the
zoning.
consent at planning and zoning. There wasn't supposed to be any discussion.
Okay.
That's what happened at planning and zoning. I'm sure you probably wasn't even notified.
Thank you.
So can we go back to the motion or the proposed motion that you made?
Yeah. So the first part is to approve the proposed amendment only to the area that applies to the Southwest Gateway Urban Renewal Area. And the second part is to have staff follow up with the property owners, the airport, members of council as appropriate, to talk about what the options are and what, I mean, the concerns that the airport raised here, and to think about what makes the most sense from a future perspective. I do think the neighborhood association is eager to see residential in this area, but I do want to be mindful of if we're building into problems. And so I think we need to discuss all of that, and my hope is we can get a meeting scheduled to do that and get everyone in the table, and everyone there. So neighborhood association, property owners, because I don't think there are too many of them, the airport, city staff, and members of the council. And
So what portion
The
are,
piece-
what portion
can I
are
just
we, are
clarify?
we changing here? Just for the record, I know that it says Gateway Urban Renewal Area, but yeah.
Basically, it does not touch any of the homeowners' property currently.
I think it would just be the Boy Scout land.
It's a Boy
wouldn't it?
Scout
That
land.
little triangle.
of course,
What, is it this red area here? Is that
Are you
what
down
we're-
one map?
I think, yeah, that's the map with the red box there.
I might move it this way.
Or you can take my iPad
That's
too.
north now.
For those of you that have your books, the pictures are in there under item 37. And quite frankly, they start right after the first page of it, so.
So Josh,
So they basically do not.
Property limits of NAP property. So are we doing the NAP property? What are we doing here? Are we just doing the portion that Waldinger needs to build their facility? Because it looks like we've added a portion of Mr. Knapp's property in this, and he is not here. And I know that he'll have a little heartburn, because I think,
Yeah. If you go back to the first map, that, I mean, it shows where the NAP property is. Right,
Is there somebody that can explain?
yeah, right there, just
No,
that.
I'm just
point.
letting.
I don't know if this clarifies it, Chris.
something needs to, because
I'm struggling.
I'd like to know what we're voting on.
Yeah, that's the map that I see.
Mayor and Council, Phil Delafield, Assistant to the City Manager. So if I understand the motion that Councilmember Mandelbaum is proposing, he desires to amend the plan to reflect the Waldinger project only and to direct staff to consider the other properties in the meetings that you suggest. That would include the larger NAP properties, whether or not those should be designated as Airport Business Park and Planned Business Park. I believe that's how I understand it. So the option C for the smaller parcel.
So that's just the small square, Phil, where it says approximate limits of Waldinger headquarters is the only thing that we're voting on right now?
Yes.
Okay.
And is that an L-shaped property or just the square that's?
The small square is what I understand. Is that correct, Phil?
it's the.
Or is it the whole big
dotted-
L?
The dotted red lines.
Actually, a triangle.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I can't answer that myself.
Okay.
Yeah. I
So
was
is
thinking
it
was the
this
triangle.
piece here, or is it just this piece?
We just
Because the other portion
specify that
says,
it's a Waldinger land.
Yeah, we
And that it's not
clarified
the,
it.
any
the other
personal
one says
property, then that should clarify whatever these maps are, because they're confusing.
That's within the noticed area.
Yeah, as long as it's within the noticed area. So we can get a map that clarifies exactly what the Waldinger
Yes.
property is to you.
well, that's,
It'd be the northeast section of the Waldinger property. It looks more like a triangle.
Yes.
It
So-
cuts the corner off.
so in the motion, are you putting in there that we are not going to do anything with anything other that's not owned by Mr. Knapp?
Yeah,
Is that part of it?
anything else, we will have to come back for further action after things are discussed and a plan is worked out with the stakeholders. We're taking a very narrow action. We're asking staff to get together and with the airport and with the neighborhood association and go through a process so that everyone can be involved and everyone's on the same page and everyone has input. And then we'll make decisions based on what we hear and learn.
So all of this is Waldingers. All of this area right here is Waldingers.
If
They
you
need
can go
all of
back
that
to-
space.
To the map, I can tell you exactly what Mike Knapp owns. Mike Knapp owns this square 40 acres and this 40 acres. Those two larger squares.
But we
are
can't
Knapp.
put that on the other.
So it's only this little triangle would be the only thing that could be included. Because Knapp owns this and Knapp owns this, the front 40 and the back 40.
And where's Waldinger going from the Scout? So does he own that or no?
They want to.
No, does Knapp own
No.
that piece
No, he does
of
not.
land?
It's owned by the Boy Scouts.
Okay,
The little
and so
triangle.
Waldinger's buying it from the Boy Scouts.
Yes.
My understanding is.
And then the rest of this area is owned by Mr. Knapp. Is that correct?
Yes, because you can see the pond there.
Yeah, where the blue line is?
There's the
This
house.
would be another exception.
So
we have
he
to
owns the
figure out.
back 40 and the front 40.
So who owns that?
Boy Scouts.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay. Well,
You understand? Brian?
No, that's-
So your motion would be just the Waldinger portion of the urban renewal area.
sure. I mean, if folks just want to limit it to Waldinger and are more comfortable, I mean, I'm comfortable doing the whole urban renewal area because that doesn't touch anything that is of the other property owners. But if folks would have greater comfort with just Waldinger, I'm good with that too.
Let me just ask a clarifying question. Are you saying you're comfortable with the whole urban renewal area because the Knapp property is already cut out of that?
That's my understanding, is the Knapp property is not part of the urban
And it
renewal.
looks like that on my map.
So I'm comfortable with the whole urban renewal area because I think it makes sense to treat the urban renewal area consistently.
I'm only comfortable in voting for that small triangle for the bite. For the,
And that's fine. If the rest of the council isn't, I'm willing to limit it. Just, I mean, that's,
I don't want to vote for something with knowing that the property owners were never contacted.
and I'm fine limiting it to just the Waldinger property and the property that they're looking for. So let's limit it to that, and we'll come back and we'll have opportunities to have further discussion after we've gotten more input and better input.
So Mid-America Development Corporation owns the other portion, the M1 portion of it.
Yep.
And then City of Des Moines Real Estate owns a portion of it.
Yeah, right away.
And then, why didn't we put the portion that, we've got everyone else owner on this portion of it, but we didn't put who owns the other area that we're looking to designate? Yeah.
I believe the property there on McKinley and South.
It would have just been
Massachusetts was
helpful.
the
Everything else is labeled on there, except for the questions that were asked. All the other owners of the property is listed, who owns what, on this map that we're talking about rezoning, except for the questions that we ask. Isn't that convenient?
So we can clear it up.
But that's why we're,
Well, you've got a motion here that I
Yep.
think clears it up, and
Perfect.
then we'll proceed with getting further information and then get out there and
And
I
what
believe I
is-
heard there was
and what-
interest in a work session, not just.
What
Yeah, no,
is
I'd say
the,
worship.
what is the motion?
The small triangle that
Just
Waldinger's
the
going to
small
use.
Just the
triangle.
Waldinger. Okay, and then we'll deal with the rest in a
Work session.
work session, because I think more than 4 council members are interested in this, or more than 3.
Okay.
7 yes.
That was,
Okay, item 38
Wasn't that fun?
is an intergovernmental 28E agreement with the Metropolitan Advisory Council, MAC, member communities of Altoona, Bondurant, Carlisle, Grimes, Johnston, Norwalk, Pleasant Hill, Polk County, Polk City, Windsor Heights, and West Des Moines for funding and maintenance of Homeland Security Services. Council Communication Number 18-505. A is an acceptance of the 2018 Homeland Security West Des Moines SWAT and EOD grant for $636,838. Council Communication Number 18-503.
Mayor, I'll move it and make a quick comment. Go ahead. If you
No, go
want to
right
speak. This obviously has been a source of frustration for the city of Des Moines, and I think in particular the mayor, and he's kind of never given up, turning the heat up on it. This is really, really important for our region, and the city of Des Moines has some assets and capacity that the whole region needs and quite frankly depends on. But for a couple of years, we haven't really had the agreement in place to get them to help the citizens of Des Moines pay for it. So, Mayor, congratulations for never
Good job.
backing down from this priority. As a member of MAC, I think we have a good group of people there, and I think this has been one of the highlights so far of this MAC year. The mayor and I serve on that, so it's great that this has come together. So congratulations.
Well, and we've got a couple more communities we're still working on. So.
Yeah. I
good to
thought
see West Des
you
Moines
might, I
happy.
thought you might say the battle continues because it's not enough and there's not enough partners yet, but
No, it's about, sort of a fraternal collegial agreement. This isn't about war. We don't have enough.
yes. Yes.
Nice work.
Good job.
This is,
7 yes.
can I make one other quick comment? These things don't happen if the other police chiefs don't have a whole lot of confidence in our police chief and our leadership, and that city manager doesn't have confidence in our city manager, and, we can't diminish their positive impact on these negotiations.
Well, this is great progress as we all continue in the region to work together for not only today, but in this case, public safety moving forward for many, many years to come. So it's good to have our region get a lot of our partners back, and we'll continue working on it. Unless anybody wants to stay here, I think we ought to call this meeting adjourned. Thank you all for attending, and we have nothing else on the agenda. Thank you.
Okay.